You introduce. I'm just a guest here. I'm just here to hang out.
Okay. Okay. You're part of the family, though. You're free to do what you want.
Yeah, you've been here for like 5 episodes now, man.
Have I? Yeah, that is true. I've been here for 5 episodes.
No, 6 episodes. No, 5. 5. 5.
Five.
5.
Five.
All right, that math has been established.
Are we starting it?
Oh, sorry. Yes, we're recording. We're
Okay.
good.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, welcome to Pitch Slapped. I'm Dan. I'm joined by Stefen and our friend Rob. In this episode, Stefen has, I'm sure, a juicy idea to share with us. So that sounds weird, juicy idea. But anyway, Stefen, take it away. Tell us what we're going to be talking about.
No problem, my friend. So, this is a story I wrote when I was at Westfield State. And then I talked with Dan. I have talked with Dan about it when we were both in school at UMass Dartmouth. Rob, I may have mentioned it when we've talked about things, but I don't know the song by Eminem. I think it's Moonshot. I don't think that's the actual title. But anyway, the song is by Eminem. There's a lyric, and it's like, evil is love spelled backwards. Don't believe me, I'll show you. Right? And it's like, I'm just a space-bound astronaut off to the moon, and I'm so lost without you. Right? I'll find it. But anyway, that's the lyric. The name of the story is Evil is Love Backwards. And the basic plot and characters are as follows. So here we go. So Sam and his new girlfriend Beth go to college together. Yes, I named most of my characters after my brother Sam. He says hi, but you can't see because of this thing. Anyway,
Hi, Sam.
Robert says hi, Holmes. So does Dan. All right, so Sam and his girlfriend Beth go to the same school, right? The first couple weeks are magical, right? They make friends, the whole 9 yards, right? Like, it's just seeming like the dream, right? Like what everyone thinks about. They go to a party where Beth is noticed by this football jock whose name is Dean Swinstall, right? He's like the big man on campus, right? And he's a total D-bag. All right, so Dean notices Beth, right, thinks she's a total fox, and he talks to his boys, right, like the football team guys, and is like, hey, does anyone know who she is, right, and asks around about her. One of the teammates, Josh, knows her, right? She lives in his girlfriend Jessica's dorm. So, Dean says he'll talk to their coach about getting Josh on the starting lineup if he can get Beth to hook up with him, right? So his girlfriend Jessica goes and talks to Beth to try and sweeten the deal, like, hey, so Dean really likes you, blah, blah, blah. He's a total hottie. You should talk with him. So that whole thing. So this, of course, causes tension between Sam and Beth. So she's curious about this, right? Because she's never been Miss Popular before, right? She's never been noticed by, like, the hunk of the school. Not that the Sam character's not handsome, but, like, starting quarterback, kind of has it made in the shade that he's like a celebrity, right? So as the week goes on, she's thinking about this, and eventually there's another big party. Sam can't go to it because he's hanging out with his buddies, right, in like their dorm. Let's say they all play Dungeons and Dragons, or they're like play Super Smash Bros, right? Because that's a little piece of what I did in college, was we played a lot of Smash Bros. So he doesn't go to the party. He chills with his homies. She lies, right? She says she's going to study in the library or something like that, but she actually goes to this party at the frat house while Sam's hanging out with his friends. So the next day, of course, she meets up with Dean, right? They end up hitting it off. One thing leads to another, and they end up hooking up, right? Now, she, of course, feels real awful about this, but it keeps happening, right? It's just a continuation. So, this incident leads them to talk, right? Where, like, the football guy's like, Dean's like, look, if you're with me, you're with me. You need to cut it off with him, right? This is how this is going to go. So that's okay. So then this leads Beth to put Sam down gently, right, to break up with him. So that's the plan. She's going to break up with Sam to be with Dean. So then she has him meet them in like a parking lot, right? Strange place, I know, but I promise it gets larger from here. So he meets at the parking lot, and as they're about to break up, what happens is Dean and his boys throw Sam in the back of this van, right? Like, he's kind of a sociopath, right? It's like, if you're with me, and no one else can be with you, right? Your ex is completely out of the picture, right? So he's a full-blown a-hole, and there will be more story to support why this happens, but essentially, he tries to kill Sam, right? So they beat the absolute shit out of him, right? And then they throw him in the countryside, right? Like, ravines. Like, think Huntington, right? Like, bumfuck woods, right? Just woods. The mob used to throw bodies there, right? So they beat this guy up. They throw him into a ravine, right? And, like, just leave him there for dead, okay? So he's leaving there for dead. And then, like, Dean and Beth then continue their relationship. Well, little do they know, Sam's mom has put out an Amber Alert, like, looking for him because he's not returned his calls. None of his roommates know where he's at. So then Dean essentially is like, all right, I need to finish the job because if they find him and realize he's alive, right, that means I'm no longer Mr. Popular and I'm going to prison. Right, so him and his boys get together. Beth, of course, has to come because she's an accomplice to ultimately kill Sam and move his body, or just move his body if he's not already dead. Now, while they're in midst to go back and find this body, now mind you, like a week or something's gone by, right? A couple days to a week has gone by. So Sam's in the woods trying to figure out where he is, trying to figure out how he gets back home. His phone doesn't work. He has no service. So while he's in the woods, he's all, bruised and beaten. Probably has some stuff broken. He's bloody. Well, he encounters, like, animals, right? Like, maybe it's not necessarily in Massachusetts, but basically he encounters, like, some wolves, right? So they start trying to hunt him. So he's trying to evade wolves and survive, and then eventually one thing leads to another where Dean and his boys encounter Sam. And then they fight. And then what happens later is the wolves show up and start attacking all these guys, right? So in the midst of this showdown where Sam is confronting Dean, right, and he's, like, pissed and he's hurt and he's broken and he lets all that out, and then he sees, like, a wolf trying to attack Beth or something. So then, like, he goes Liam Neeson, like, in The Gray to fight this thing to save her, and it's like, you did this to me, right? This is all because of you. You did this, right? So then eventually, all the football jocks essentially get injured. No one really dies, but it's very clear that Dean will never be a quarterback again, right? He gets messed up not just by Sam, but by some of these wolves. So then, like, a rescue party, right from the Amber Alert, they come, they find them, they take them away. And the last scene is, like, Sam going into an ambulance, right? And Beth being in said ambulance, or possibly on the outside, just, like, with her hand against the window. Now, this is framed with Sam being in therapy, right? So he's talking to not necessarily a therapist, but someone who's in grad school who works at, like, the counseling center because they want to be a therapist, right? So this is slightly something like I went to therapy when I was at Westfield State, and for a while, I thought one of my homies was the grad school counselor who I saw named Dallas, who is the man. He's a great dude. So it's framed in conversation where Sam goes to this meeting with the character whose name is Dallas and is telling him how he got here, and he's trying to figure out how to get his life back on track and not be so hurt or mad or angry, and just wants somebody to hear him, right? To take his side and not, like, prejudge the situation. So that's it. That's it. I did write a rough draft. It's not great. It's not bad. But it definitely needs work. So it's something I am going to expand upon. I do consider this to be what could be my opus, right? What I have to offer as far as story goes. If I were to cast it for anything as Sam, I would have I believe it's Zolo Muraduina, right? He plays Miguel in Cobra Kai. I think he would be great as Sam. I have Emma Mackey playing Beth, and Emma Mackey plays the girl from Sex Education, the one who the main character is always hanging out with.
Oh, Madge.
Yeah, her. So she plays her. I have John Bradley playing Dallas, the grad school counselor. John Bradley plays Samwell Tarly in Game of Thrones. I got Asa Butterfield, who's the main dude from Sex Education, playing Sam's friend Dave. I have Anna Taylor-Joy playing Jessica, right, Josh's girlfriend. I have Lena Headey playing Sam's mom, also from Game of Thrones. Tanner Buchanan playing Dean Swinstall. Tanner Buchanan plays He's also from Cobra Kai. He plays Robbie Keane, right? Billy Zabka's son. And then I have Alan Ruck as the football coach, and Alan Ruck played Cameron in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And he also plays a really mean, convincing jerk of a teacher in the movie Freaky. And if I could have my pick of director, it would be Matt Reeves, who would direct it. My second pick would be Josh Boone, and my third pick would be John Watts. And then some things that inspired this idea, not just the Eminem song, and I apologize, I don't know what it is, but there's a movie called The Last American Virgin, right? And the main premise of the film is this guy really loves this girl, and his best friend ends up getting with her and gets her pregnant and then ditches her, right? So then he pays for her to have an abortion because that's what she wants, and then he takes care of her, makes sure she's okay, and is there for her through the whole journey, and then in the end she still leaves him to go back to his friend who ditched her. So it's not a really happy film. Also, Perks of Being a Wallflower, The Lovely Bones, and the movie starring Alec Baldwin and Anthony Hopkins called The Edge, in which they're stranded in the Alaskan wilderness. But it is something I haven't quite figured how to do that whole perspective switch, right, from being in therapy to the scenes and moments that Sam is describing. I saw it done really well, Dan, when Emily talked about her story, I think, about an abusive relationship in Man's class. So if I could take something how she did and do that, that'd be tight. But yeah, sorry, I'm talking too much. That's the story, guys. So that's Evil is Love Backwards.
I just have I'm down with the story. I just have one question. Like, was Beth in on the murder plan? Like, was she like, yeah, kill him, like, do it for the laws? Like, was she in on it? Like,
I feel like at first she was just like, oh, you're just being like, over dramatic, right? Like, you know how people say, oh, I'm going to kill you, and realistically they don't know, like, that's technically assault, right? Because you can't say stuff to people like that. So she doesn't think he'll do it, and then, like, he does do it, and she just becomes kind of complacent, right?
Okay, gotcha. Well, I mean, it sounds like a very interesting story. I don't know if, like, this is what you were going for, but for some reason, like, when you were telling it, like, I kept thinking of the movie, like, Ready or Not. Like, have you seen that?
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, for some reason, like, it was just, like, screaming dark comedy to me, but, like, I feel like it could be, like, given the directors you named, I have a feeling like that's not the vibe you're going for, but I still think it'll work with the vibe you're going for. And you said you were worried about, like, your framing device. To me, one of the best stories that ever, like a story within a story, to me, was, like, Easy A. Like, the way, like, Emma Stone's character, like, tells that story, like from, like, the end to the beginning, always made sense to me. Like, she, like, comes in, like, yeah, and things started getting out of control, and, like, then, like, it, like, kind of goes into the montage moments where, like, you can kind of, like, speed through plot. So I think, like, that's when the framing device is, like, most, like, appropriately used. Like, when you need to speed past, like, plot points that, like, aren't super important, but you still need to tell them. So, like, I think, like, those are the moments, like, you switch to, like, your therapy scene and, like, oh, while I was out in the woods, like, surviving was hard, and, like, I was doing all this crazy shit. Like, maybe stuff that's, like, you need to say it because, like, obviously he's like alone in the woods for a week, but it's not like central to the plot, I guess. Maybe, like, think of it like that way.
It's like time went by. Yeah.
Like,
so in that moment, yeah. I think Rob has a really great idea, though. I think using Easy A as your touchstone for a framing device actually works, I think, in your case, Stefan, too, because, in that movie, she's not talking to a therapist per se. She's talking to, everybody who's watching the stream. But, I think she's talking to somebody, not just to herself. So there is a reason why she's telling the story. So I say, yeah, use Easy A as as your backbone. I also think for your frame, in speaking to a therapist, I think you should maybe consider what is it that Sam needs from the therapist. You know what I mean? I feel like when we go to therapy, we don't always know what we need.
Right.
You know what I mean? We have a bunch of emotions. We have this maybe dramatic or sad backstory, but we don't know what we need. So I feel like maybe this isn't the way you want to go, but if the therapist is an effective therapist, hopefully by the end, Sam gets what he needs, whether it was just an empathetic ear, whether it was advice on how to handle the pain that's left behind. So I feel like not just making the therapist a passive character, but also letting the therapist do some of the heavy lifting of the story. You know what I mean?
No, I see what you're saying. I think there are moments where he does talk, right? And it's well, wait, what? What happened next? He can cut in the midst of an action to speed things up, between the session. I feel like this would also be Sam's first session with them, right? The story would open with his mom telling him look, you're gonna be okay, right? This is gonna be good for you, right? You need to do this because I can't keep watching you stare at the ceiling all day. So all this stuff has already happened, and then he's rehashing it to this guy for the first time, so he knows what he's been through. So then, maybe at the end, the therapist can be people come with baggage. You know what I mean? Some more than others, but you and me will work through this or something like that. It leaves it. I like it where it's open to your interpretation, right? Does he keep going to therapy? Is the therapist going to be helpful? So I think that whole kind of deal could be interesting. Maybe the last line is so that question where it's you've clearly been through a lot, Sam. So what is it? What is it you think we can do together? How can I best help you? And then that's he's just I don't know where to begin. And he's well, when are you free again? It's something like that, right? So then it's appointment 2.
Well, yeah, because the traumatic experience of being beaten, left for dead in the woods, and then being hunted by wolves, and then again by your classmates is going to leave some scars. It's going to take more than one therapy session.
Right. Plus heartbreak, right at the heart of it, because it's yo, man, she did this to me. She was in on it the whole time. So it's I guess he's kind of looking for closure, but it's how do you get closure for any of that?
I'm going to be somebody to push back on what you just said. Now, I don't know if you were saying it as Sam saying that Beth did this to him, or if you were saying this as Stefen saying this as the person writing the story. But as the person who was hearing the story, and I've heard this before, I want to push back against maybe the idea that Beth did this to him. Because, Beth isn't the person who controlled his situation. You know what I mean? So I feel like making Beth the person to pin all of the blame is maybe misguided. And maybe that's part of the story. But I wanted to push back against that idea just a little bit. Now, you feel free to disagree, but just a little push.
I think Dan's saying is, yes, she cheated, but she also didn't want you murdered and thrown in the. Well, Sam murdered and thrown in the woods.
No, and I can see that point. Perhaps that's something that can be brought up. I guess what I'm saying is she was supposed to be someone who cared about him, and she was complacent in it. You know
No,
what I
yeah,
mean?
after she knew about it, she still didn't say anything, and that's definitely still a problem.
Right. So I guess maybe the big thing is like that's what sticks with him the most. Not that I was beaten and I didn't word that.
She said she cared about me, but she also left me to die, and she knew I was in the woods dying, and she also didn't do anything.
Right. So
Right.
it's like bones heal, scars heal, scratches heal, but like that doesn't necessarily heal. You know what I mean? Like you just said, someone who's supposed to care about me, and this is the outcome.
Yeah, it's like a betrayal
Right.
of Sam's trust. But again, like Rob said, I would push back on. I could see Sam saying that to Beth and that being his mentality. But as the writer, maybe there's a way to like make a distinction. Like Beth is not totally the bad guy. Like she didn't, So
Well, the therapist could serve as like that foil.
yeah,
Where
that's
it's like unbiased, be like, well, it's like she did some things wrong, but like she also didn't kidnap you in a van.
exactly.
Work out from like the storytelling perspective.
Yeah, that's where I think that therapist will be helpful. So that was a good idea, Rob.
No, both of you, very good thoughts.
The Sam and Dean though, is that a supernatural reference?
No. Honestly, I was just trying to pull names. I've seen only a couple supernatural things, but I guess it, it's cool. It's interesting that is how it ended up being.
Gotcha.
Not intentional though.
Hurt.
But should be cool. Any other thoughts or suggestions?
Murder in the Woods. I mean, this Dean guy sounds like a piece of work, so I'm interested in like what your backstory is for that, because I mean, you don't just start with just like kidnapping someone and beating them and throwing them in the woods. I feel like that's something you work up to.
Yeah.
Like if that's his first defense, then Jesus Christ, what a backstory this kid has.
I feel like, as writing it, I don't know how I would make it come about, but like he strikes me as the guy who did a lot of shady things in high school, but they put it under the rug because he brought in like titles. You know what I'm saying? Like their team won the local championship in what sport he played. So it's like, oh, you did this, but you brought us that. So we're just gonna push it under the rug. I'm guessing he's from a small town where he's a big deal.
He's your Bryce Walker.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that's it. Think Bryce Walker, that's it.
I was gonna say it has sort of a 13 Reasons Why meets. I know you said your inspirations too, Stefen, but 13 Reasons Why and a little bit of Looking for Alaska. I don't know. It sounded that's what I was seeing in there.
No, like a dark John Green story, right? With some level of grit in it. You know what I mean? Like, not all these coming-of-age tales are happy ones, right? And I think, in a sense, both the things you guys talked about tonight touch on that, right? Everyone has a trauma, right? Rob, you mentioned a parent dying and the horrors that they commit without us knowing. Dan, you touched on, like, the places we grow up, the things we think are cool and we want to explore and what may lurk there, right, without us knowing or wanting to admit. And then this is just like, when people betray you when they say they care about you. It's like a perfect triangle.
It's like we themed this or something.
Yeah, no, it is. It is. It's pretty cool now that we've broken that down. But
now that you've broken it down,
there's a lot of trauma. Trauma is very real, right? And you talk about it in a younger age. I think Rob and me are both, and it transfers, right? It comes full circle. The older you get, it still lingers there, or it can still happen. So not exactly the happiest of things, but I appreciate you listening to this idea, and I appreciate all of you who tuned in, listening to it. Hopefully you digged it, and I'll keep you updated as this goes. I really like the framing idea and the idea of the therapist, like, saying, well, look, man, here's... trying to, understand him and get into his head, but also trying to be like, you understand she's not the one who did that to you, right? Which then gives him the point to express why he's really there, which is, like, because he's betrayed and heartbroken, right? And it's like, this shit, right? Like, he has a cast, it's like, this will heal. Like, but not this, right? Like, cheesy monologue, but oh, so nice.
I get the vibe.
Beautiful. Well, if nothing else, that concludes this episode of Pitch Slap. And we hope you tune in next week.
Peace out, folks.